Good morning and welcome again. I'm reading from the second book of Samuel, otherwise called the second book of Kings, according to the King James Version of the Holy Bible. And the second book of Samuel comes in the Old Testament of the Holy Bible. I'm reading from chapter 1 onwards. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul that David returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came to pass even on the third day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul, with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. And so it was when he came to David that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. And David said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said to the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man had told him, said, As it happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me. And I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is set whole in me. So I stood upon him, slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelets that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. And David took hold on his clothes and rent them, likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he said, I am the son of a stranger and Amalekites. And David said to him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch out thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men, Go near, fall upon him. And he smote him, and he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth has testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. And David lamented with lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. Also he bade them that teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher, The beauty of Israel is slain upon the high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offering, for there the shield of the mighty is widely cast away, and the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turn not back, and the sword of Saul return not empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. Ye daughters of Jerusalem, Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet with other delights, who put on ornaments of gold upon your apparel. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle, O Jonathan? Thou wast slain in thy high places. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished. Chapter 2. And it came to pass after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, Go up. And David said, Whither shall I go up? And he said, Unto Hebron. So David went up thither, and his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, Nabal's wife, the Carmelite. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. And David sent messengers unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, and said unto them, Blessed be ye of the Lord, and ye have showed kindness unto the Lord, even unto Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord show kindness and truth unto you, and I will also requite you this kindness, because ye have done this thing. Therefore now let your hands be strengthened and be valiant, for your master Saul is dead, and the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. And Abner the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and made him king over Gilead, and over the Ashurites, over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth Saul's son was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years, but the house of Judah followed David. But that time David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 and 6 months. And Abner the son of Ner and the servants of Ishbosheth the son of Saul went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab the son of Zeruiah, the servants of David went out and met together the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one on the side of the pool and the other on the side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, Let the young men now arise and play before us. And Joab said, Let them arise. Then there arose and went over a number of 12 of Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And they caught every one his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in the fellow's side, so they fell down together. Wherefore the place was called Helkath Hazurim, which is in Gibeon. And there was sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before the servants of David. And there were 3 sons of Zeruiah, there were Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as a wild roe. And he pursued Abner, and in going he turned not to the right nor to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, Art thou Asahel? And he said, I am. And Abner said unto him, Turn thee aside to the right hand and to the left, and lay thee hold of one of the young men, and take thee his armor. But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. And Abner said again to Asahel, Turn thee aside from following me. Wherefore should I smite thee to the ground? How then should I hold my face up to Joab thy brother? Howbeit he refused to turn aside. Wherefore Abner with the hinder end of the spear smote him under the 5th rib, that the spear came out behind him. He fell down there, and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Joab also and Abishai pursued after Abner, and the sun went down when they came unto the hill of Ammah, that lieth down before Giah, by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one troop, and stood on the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab, and said, Shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou not that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then before the people return from the following their brethren? And Joab said, As God liveth, unless thou hast spoken. Surely then in the morning the people has gone up everywhere from his following his brothers. So Joab blew the trumpet, and all the people stood still, pursued Israel no more, neither fought they any more. And Abner and his men walked all night through the plain, passed over Jordan, went through Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned there from following Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, they lacked of David's servants 19 men and Asahel. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. And they took up Asahel and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at the break of day. Chapter 3. Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. And unto David were sons born in Hebron. The first was Amnon of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and the second was Chileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. The third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. And the fourth was Adonijah, the son of Haggith. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. The sixth, Ithra of Baigla, David's wife. They were born to David in Hebron. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the house of Ai, the daughter of Ai. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, Wherefore hast thou gone into my father's concubine? And then Abner was very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and he said, Am I a dog's head, which against Judah showed kindness this day unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren, to his friends, and have not delivered thee unto the hand of David, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord has shown to David, even so I do to him, to translate the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. But he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, Whose is this land? Saying also, Make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee. And he said, Well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except thou first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishoboth, Saul's son, saying, Deliver me my wife Michal, which I espouse for me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Ishoboth sent, and took her from her husband, even from Phaltiel, the son of Laish. And her husband went with her along weeping behind her to Bahurim. Then said Abner unto him, Go, return. And he returned. And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, Ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it, for the Lord has spoken to David, By the hand of my servant David I will serve my people of Israel out of the hand of the Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron all that seemed good to Israel, and it seemed good to the whole of the house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, that they may reign all over thine heart, that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he had sent them away, and he is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is quite gone? Thou knowest Abner the son of Ner, that he comes to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. When Joab came out of David, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Sirah. But David knew it not. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him under there the 5th rib, that he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. And afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab, and on the father's house, and let there not fail from the house of Joab one that has an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on the sword, or that lacketh bread. So Joab and Abishai the brother slew Abner, because he had slain the brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. And David said to Joab and to all the people that were him, Rend your clothes, gird your sackcloth, mourn before Abner. And King David himself followed the bier. And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king lamented over Abner, and said, Died Abner as a fool dieth? Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet are put in fetters. As a man falleth before a wicked man, thou fellest. And all the people wept again over him. And all the people came to cause David to eat meat while it was at day. David sware, saying, So God do to me, and more also, if I taste bread, and aught else till the sun be down. And all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, that whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. And all the people and all Israel understood that day it was not of the king to slay Abner and the son of Ner. And the king said unto his servants, Know ye not there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am this day weak, though anointed king. These men of Zeruiah be too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. And when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son and 2 men that were captains of bands. The name of one was Bana, and the name of the other was Rechab. The sons of Rimmon, a Beerothite, of the children of Benjamin, for Beeroth also was reckoned to Benjamin. And the Beerothites fled to Gittaim, and were sojourners there until this day. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame. And his name was Mephibosheth. The sons of Rimnon and Berthorite, Rechab and Bana went and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishabites, who lay on a bed at noon. And they came thither in the midst of the house, as though they would have fetched wheat. And they smote him under the 5th rib. And Rechab and Bana his brother escaped. But when they came to the house, he lay on his bed in his bedchamber. And they smote him and slew him, and beheaded him, and took his head, and get away through the plain of Nine. They brought the head of Ishaboth unto David to Hebron, and said to the king, Behold, the head of Ishaboth, the son of Saul, thine enemy, which sought thy life, and the Lord has avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and his seed. And David answered Rechab and Bana his servant, the sons of Rimmon and Beerothite, and said unto them, As the Lord liveth, who has redeemed my soul out of all adversity, when one told me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him, and slew him in Siglag, who thought I would be glad, I would have given him a reward for his tidings. How much more when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house, upon his own bed? Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand, and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they slew them, cut off their hands and their feet, hanged them on the pool, over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishaboth and buried it in the sepulchre of Abner in Hebron. Chapter 5. Then came the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron, and spake, saying, But we are thy bone and thy flesh. Also in the time past, when Saul was king over us, thou wast he led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel, thou shalt be captain over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed king over Israel. David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. In Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites and the inhabitants of the land, which he spake unto David, saying, Except thou take away the blind and the lame, thou shalt not come in hither, thinking, David cannot come in hither. Nevertheless, David took a strong hold of Zion, the same is the city of David. And David said that day, Whoso getteth up to the gutter smiteth the Jebusites and the lame and the blind, that are hated of David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Wherefore they said, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house. So David dwelt in the fort, and called it the city of David. And David built round about from Millo and inward. And David went down and grew great, and the Lord of God of hosts was with him. Then Hiram, the king of Tyre, sent messengers to David, and cedar trees and carpenters and masons, and they built David a house. And David perceived that the Lord had established him king over Israel, and that he exalted his kingdom for his people Israel's sake. And David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem, after he was come from Hebron. And they were 8 sons and daughters born to David. And these be the names of those that were born unto him in Jerusalem: Shammua and Shoab, Nathan and Solomon, Ibar of Elishua, Nebka and Japhia, and Elishma, Eliada, and Eliphalet. And when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines came up to seek David. And David heard of it and went down to the hold. And Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into my hands? And the Lord said unto him, Go up, for I will doubtless deliver the Philistines into thy hand. And David came to Baal-Perazim, and David smote them there, and said, The Lord has broken forth mine enemies before me, as the breach of waters. Therefore he exalted and called the place of the name Baal-Perazim. And there he left their images, and David and his men burned them. And the Philistines came up again, and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, and he said, Thou shalt not go up, but fetch a compass behind them, and come up over them against the mulberry trees. And let it be, when thou hearest the sound of going in the tops of mulberry trees, that thou shalt bestir thyself. And then shall the Lord go out before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. And David did so, as the Lord had commanded him, and smote the Philistines from Geba unto Gazer.